Welcome to the Babies in Business Podcast. Join your hosts, Rachel and Avram Gonzales, real-life parents and business partners. Each week on Babies in Business, Rachel and Avram create a space for entrepreneurial parents to find their own way. They'll dive into insights on topics like leadership, efficiency, self-awareness, budgeting, and human psychology as they nurture their family and build their business. Here's your hosts, Avram and Rachel.
Welcome back. We've been watching some movies lately, catching some more quotes. I really liked when we did the Santa Claus a couple months ago.
Yeah.
We talked about that quote from that episode. We've got another one for you here today, and it comes from Adam Sandler's movie with Drew Barrymore, Blended.
Such a good movie. It was the first time I had ever seen that. It was this weekend. It was really great.
Yeah, and usually Rachel does not like Adam Sandler, so it worked out well this time. I was like, it's got Drew Barrymore in it, it's gonna go well, and I faintly remembered it coming out. I'm pretty sure I went and saw it with some friends. There was a quote. So the premise of the movie is Drew Barrymore, Adam Sandler, they're both recently single for different reasons. They both have kids of the opposite gender. So Drew Barrymore's got 2 boys, Adam's got 3 girls.
Yep.
And basically, they end up on a safari together as a, quote, blended family and trying to get along. So they're not together, but of course, they end up together. The kids love the other person. And there's this scene, and this is the quote we want to talk about. In this scene, Drew Barrymore says to Adam Sandler, she says, or she was talking about a conversation she had with somebody else.
Yeah.
You get that being a parent means putting your kids first 100% of the time. To which Adam Sandler replies, no, it's 99% of the time. That last 1%, we get to do what we want.
I love this quote, and that's why we're basing a whole episode around it, because, you know, she had come out of a marriage and they were getting divorced.
She got cheated on.
Yeah, she got cheated on, and he lost his wife, and his daughters were struggling to overcome that huge loss. And, you know, he had this wonderful relationship and it ended early.
Yeah.
And then she had this, sounds like really rocky relationship, and it ended probably not soon enough. And, you know, she's talking about how he's never really there for her kids.
Right.
And Adam Sandler is saying, well, you got to be there 100% of the time. And then he kind of takes it back and he says, well, 99% of the time, because 1% for yourself. And so it's kind of cheeky, but I think it bears talking about. Like, what is the reality in our world of that percentage? And is that actually what we would term the proper percentage, or even the correct order? You know, I get the sentiment. Children should come all the time. And it's like, you know, they were talking about soccer game. And, you know, one kid, she had said that her son, no, it was baseball.
Yeah.
He had always dreaded the games, and Adam had helped him to actually bat really well. And now he wasn't going to be dreading the game. And he's like, you know, you got to be there for your kid. And then they were reminiscing and just really connecting in that way, because they put their kids first, and her spouse didn't. And he's just never there and always flakes and stuff. And I know why they said what they said.
Yeah. Well, I also think that this quote's interesting because it goes in opposition to some of the things that we've shared before in the podcast about putting your oxygen mask on first.
Absolutely.
So, you know, making sure that you have the energy to be able to help others.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like the reverse of it.
Yeah.
In a way.
I think, and you know, thinking about the quote, I just think it's more the mentality that they're talking about, maybe. The willingness to be there for your children 100% of the time. Like, you will be there at their games. That means a lot to you. You will do everything you can to make those things because they're important to them. And we've talked about the fleeting time that we have with our children. If we don't spend the time we have with them before they're 18, we will lose out on so much time. How much was it? Like 80% of the time that we'll ever spend with them?
Go back in the archives, the 93% statistic. We did a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Just incredible. So we are choosing to put our children first, being there at their activities and all these different things that they're part of. We want to do that. But there is the remembering that putting your kids 100% of the time actually does mean putting yourself first so that you can.
Wait, what?
You have to have your oxygen mask on first
Oh, you do.
before you actually can be there. Like, we could break it down so much, but in my head, it's just racing because for me, I just think about nursing. If I was there for August all the time, like when he woke up at night and I just fed him, instead of helping him learn how to connect his sleep cycles, then all I would be doing is chipping away at my stamina and providing him with what I feel like he needs. But really, in reality, at the age that he is, at almost 8 months, he can sleep through the night, and so can I. So putting me first, saying, you know what, I actually do want to sleep through the night, and making those steps to help August get through the night.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by putting your mask on first. Recognizing that in the equation of looking at what your kids need, you are part of that.
Right. Yeah, and
It is not kids only.
it's not kids only. I think that's what Adam was pointing at when he said, well, you know, like it's 99% because the 1% we get to do whatever.
Yeah.
I think he's pointing at the fact that, first of all, 100% is kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
To do that is ridiculous. It's unsustainable.
Yeah.
You will lose track of who you are.
Yep.
And your kids need you. So part of being there for them 100% of the time is also taking care of you so that you can.
Yeah. You know, I come from a family, if you've listened to this at all, you know that I come from a family of 11 children. So I'm 7 from the top, and there are 10 others from me, so 11 total kids. And, you know, I look at the way that I grew up, and my mom never really did anything for herself. And there was never building into herself, and I was never taught that I was part of the equation. I knew that I was going to be a wife and a mother, and that was it. And so my struggle has been to actually put myself first. So put myself actually into the equation.
Yes, into the equation.
That it's not necessarily that I come first and there's the selfishness. You know, there's a lot of feelings around putting us first, but we're part of the equation, and we have to be, because otherwise we do burn out. And you know, I looked at my mom. My father passed in 2016, and then she passed 2 years later, but she was listless, like purposeless. She didn't know what to do after he died because it was all about him. And now that she didn't have someone to take care of, she actually didn't really take care of herself. You know, so I would like to have a full life and know that I want my children to see a whole person in me instead of mom is here just for me. I don't want them to feel like they need to feel bad going off to college because all I live for is them. You know, there's a lot of that too in my thinking.
Well, you brought up something interesting that we hadn't even talked about after this quote. You know, your mom did the 100% thing.
Yeah.
And you just described where it kind of left her.
Yeah.
So what do you think, just to play around with it, like what do you think the percentage really, quote, should be? Like how much of the time should you dedicate to yourself to make sure you're taken care of if we're breaking it out of this, 100%? I mean, you could look at it like in terms of your day and the hours you spend. You could look at it in terms of the energy. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
And mindset too. You know, honestly, I think that the ratio that he gave of 99 and 1 is great because it's the mindset. I think it's more about the mindset and less about the percentage.
It is.
And it's like, I will do everything for my child, but I will also keep me in mind. I think about what I learned in therapy. So after Lincoln was born, I had a lot of things come up about my family. And I wanted to be able to work through some of those things and some things that had happened to me in the past and feel like I had tools to overcome some of the like anxiety and depression and just all the things coming to a head all at once when Lincoln was born. And I was given this tool, and it has actually truly changed me. And it was the window of tolerance. And it helped me understand like some of the stuff about my family and my parents, and like my therapist posed the actual like thought that maybe I didn't know my parents because they didn't actually live in their window of tolerance.
Which is?
So what that is we have a place where we function optimally. And that's where we make rash decisions. We don't make rash decisions. We make sound decisions. We're not doing things because we have scarcity. We're totally
regulated
in that
yeah.
in that area, in
Yeah.
that window of tolerance. But when, like for you maybe, when there's too much sound,
Yep.
you're out of your window of tolerance, and oftentimes the only thing that you're thinking about is please make it stop.
Yeah.
And for me, it could be maybe, I mean, I don't even know what gets me out of my window of tolerance at this point. Maybe it's lack of sleep at this point.
Sure.
But what the therapist said is basically don't make decisions. So there's multiple tools.
Well, let's put it like this. Stressors push people outside of their window of tolerance.
Yes. So if you're constantly stressed, then you're not able to, you don't actually show up as yourself. And she was saying, what she taught me was that your brain will actually rewire the pathways to make it so that the way your brain functions is actually these pathways instead of those pathways. So it takes you from being able to actually be in a window of tolerance to you're always outside of it. And I think about that, and the time that we spend on ourselves allows us to stay in that window of tolerance. For me, it is me saying, I do need a massage every other week. I do need to go to the gym every other day, or whatever that looks like, the regularity, so that you and I both get that half and half split at the gym. There's things like that. It's also like, you know what? I don't care what's going on with the kids. I need a shower every day.
Yeah.
And then she also, there's so many other
Or
tools. And
like,
we'll go
you
into
know.
those other tools later, but this one really applies to this, the 99 and the 1. I think it's just a mindset, but it is also the willingness to know yourself and what you need and act on that.
Yeah.
And maybe this episode is more for me than for anyone out there, because I'm really working on this, putting me into the equation and saying that I need something and speaking up. Because if we do not speak up, it can be male or female, I don't care who you are. If we don't speak up and tell the person that we love or whoever's around us in our spheres, if we don't tell them what we need, they will never know. And we will never get it.
Yeah. Much as they love you, they're worried about their own stuff in the moment and navigating their world just
Yeah.
alongside you.
Yeah. And in relationships, communication is king. And I think about this quote from Brene Brown. It changed my life because I always put people first. And, I wouldn't tell people what I needed or say no or whatever because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. And I was worried more about them. And I was never part of that equation. And it is clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So I can be clear with you about what I want or what I don't want. And what that does is it's clear and kind, because in the end, I'm not going to feel let down and you're not going to be frustrated when my mind changes or seemingly changes one day, because it's just different.
Yeah,
because it was never true for me.
You shared the expectation, then I can show up in regards to that expectation. And so that's the kind thing to do versus harboring it, sitting on it, not saying anything, and expecting the person to show up a different way.
Exactly. Like having you read between the lines, or all the famous things, we're watching all these movies and talking about how women men need to read women's mind and how we're so mysterious. And, we could just do the man a favor and tell them what we need.
Yeah, just tell us. We're good at that.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
Because I love the numbers, I am going to put a percentage to it.
Yeah, okay. I want to hear
Right.
it.
So I think that at 1% for me, not enough. Not even close to enough for me to show up fully for everybody in our family. I think it's got to be a minimum of 10%.
Okay.
If not all the way up to 20.
I like it.
That's a big chunk. We don't get 20.
No.
We do not get 20.
You know what we've found is date night is really crucial.
The time.
Time when the babies go to bed and we have time with each other. Those are the times that we want and need, and that actually helps us regulate as a couple as well as individually.
Correct.
And it isn't just couple time. We need time alone as well, but so
Yeah.
I like the 10%. I like that.
If we carved out 1% alone time outside the gym, that would be a miracle. So
I
there
know,
is none.
right?
So we're like
But we have
very
the gym.
happy with our couple time.
Yes.
That's what I see is like our time, not with the children,
Right.
allows us to show up in the window of tolerance as much as possible for them. And so for
Absolutely.
me, that's 10% plus. Our gym time falls into that. Our 30 to 45 minutes in the morning where it's just the one baby up and not the toddler yet.
Yep.
That's a sacred, really chill time. And then we have an evening. We have the evening. We have an hour to an hour and a half. Depending on when babies go down, where it's just, there's nothing else.
When we were on the schedule of we wake up and it's full out and we basically are full out all the way up till bed, that was such a brutal schedule for me. And I just felt myself going further back and back and back. And that was 100%. It felt like 150 at times.
It was for the children.
Yeah, it was for the children. And when you have a really small infant, that is kind of what's expected, but it's only for a time.
Only for a time.
So, if you're in that window right now with a brand new baby, just hang in there.
Yeah.
It gets better after a couple of months. It doesn't have to be 8, but a couple of months, with regular sleep and eating and stuff. But yeah, I love that you broke it down and you have 10%. For me, it's more of a mindset.
Yeah.
I need that 1%. If I went from the mindset that I had of I don't factor into the equation to 10%, I think that would feel like 1 to 1,000 for me because it's just way more. You showed me a video game, and I actually love to play a video game now, and that was never in my cards before. I never thought I would do something that wasn't useful. I was raised to be useful, and if I wasn't doing something useful, I wasn't useful, and there's all of these things. So
doing versus
so
not
1%
doing.
for me is a big deal, and it's more of a mindset as opposed to like the time that I dedicate.
We'd love to hear it from you. If you go to babiesandbiz.com/71, you can see the show notes, other episodes related to this one, not just the ones that we talked about here. Those are included, other reference material, anything else that we mentioned in there. At the bottom of that page, our community question, we want to know.
Yeah.
So for you, is this just a mindset for you? Or do you have a number in mind that is the ideal number
And we'd
for
love
you?
to hear why.
And why. Just be fun. So we look forward to hearing you in those comments. Appreciate you for coming out, listening to this episode today. If you haven't rated us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, wherever else you're listening, please do that. It helps us get seen and found by more folks. So with that, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Babies in Business podcast. Who do you know that would benefit from hearing this episode? Share it with them and post about it on social media. You can find the show notes for this episode, free downloads, and connect with the rest of the community at babiesandbiz.com. We'll see you next time.